Momo is back. The nightmare returns. The night was thick with an unnatural silence, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The moon hung high in the sky, pale and lifeless, casting eerie shadows across the dimly lit streets. A dense fog rolled in, swallowing the city in its cold embrace. Rahul sat alone in his room, his heart weighed down by an unexplainable dread. It had been a long day, but no matter how much he tried, he couldn't shake off the strange feeling that someone, or something, was watching him. The air in his room felt heavy, suffocating. The dim light from his bedside lamp flickered, casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., his phone buzzed. The sudden vibration shattered the silence like a gunshot. His hands trembled as he reached for the phone. The screen glowed with a single, unread message, an unknown number. With his pulse hammering in his ears, he tapped on it. "I am back. Did you miss me?" A wave of ice-cold fear washed over him. His throat went dry. He blinked rapidly, hoping it was just a prank. But deep down, he knew better. That name, that cursed name, had haunted the darkest corners of the internet, spreading terror to all who encountered it. Momo. His fingers hovered over the screen, uncertain of what to do. His mind raced. He hadn't spoken about Momo in years. He had never searched for it, never invited its presence. So how did it find him? The phone vibrated again. "Look outside your window." His breath hitched. The room felt colder, the air suddenly thick with the scent of something rotten, decayed. Every nerve in his body screamed at him not to look. But against his better judgment, his head turned, slowly, fearfully, toward the window. At first, there was nothing, just the fog-drenched street, eerily still under the flickering streetlights. The wind whispered through the trees, their twisted branches casting monstrous shadows. Then he saw it. 2 enormous, bulging eyes, a grotesquely stretched grin, inhuman and unnatural, curling at the edges like a nightmare given flesh. The face was half hidden behind the glass, pressed so close that the skin looked as if it would peel away. Its breath fogged up the window, its head tilted at an impossible angle. Momo was watching him. The whispers in the dark, a choked gasp escaped his lips. He stumbled backward, his pulse hammering like a war drum. His phone buzzed again. "Let me in." No, no, no. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. His hands shook as he typed a reply, his fingers barely obeying his commands. "Who are you? What do you want?" Almost immediately, another message came through. "You already know me. You invited me back." His stomach twisted into knots. He hadn't done anything. He hadn't searched for Momo, hadn't spoken of it. Then why? A slow, deliberate sound filled the room. Tap, tap. The knocking wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from inside the house. His blood turned to ice. His eyes darted toward his bedroom door. The handle twisted slightly, as if someone or something was trying to get in. His phone buzzed one last time. "Don't look behind you." But it was already too late. The nightmare manifests. The light in his room flickered violently before plunging into total darkness. The only illumination came from his phone screen, casting eerie shadows that seemed to stretch and move on their own. He heard it then, a guttural, wet whisper, a voice that slithered into his ears, curling around his brain like a poisonous snake. "You let me in. Now I will never leave." His breath came in ragged gasps. He clenched his eyes shut, praying that this was just a dream. Then suddenly he felt it, a breath on the back of his neck. Cold, rotten, wrong. His body refused to move. Every muscle locked in terror as an invisible force held him in place. His phone screen flickered. In the dim light, he caught sight of something moving behind him. A hand. Long, skeletal, the fingers impossibly thin, ending in black, jagged claws. It reached for him, inches away from his trembling shoulder. The darkness around him thickened. The whispers turned into laughter. The presence behind him grew stronger, looming over him like a shadow of death. His phone slipped from his hands. The screen cracked as it hit the floor. The last message burned into his vision. "Now you are mine." Then, silence. The final warning. The next morning, Rahul's room was empty. His bed was untouched. His phone lay shattered on the floor. The only trace of his existence was the chilling message on the screen. His parents searched for him. The police investigated, but no one could explain how a person could vanish without a single trace. Some say he ran away. Others say he was taken. But one thing is certain. Momo is back. And if you're reading this, she might be watching you next.